our son passed away, he was undiagnosed. We had just worked with the geneticist about 4 weeks prior to that, trying to figure out what was going on with Caleb. He didn't really have any answers for us. The doctors, when Caleb was in the hospital, didn't have any answers other than he had cardiomyopathy. I guess, and then once they'd performed an autopsy, they still didn't have any answers for us. So, because we had 6 other healthy children, I really felt a need to find out what happened to him, because I didn't know at that point if it was just a fluke, which is what they were telling us, it's just a fluke, it won't happen again. But that didn't really settle well with me. So that's when I put Caleb's symptoms into Google and got, a bunch of different diseases. And then the Barth syndrome was one of the diseases that matched a lot of Caleb's symptoms. And then with me having lost a brother also, that all fit. And so then I contacted the foundation and talked to Shelley, and she's the one who really kind of pushed me to talk to different doctors. I used Google and I put in Caleb's symptoms. He had, I guess, 4 main symptoms. And I found a website that listed about 56 different diseases. I took each one of those and I researched each one of them. Some of them I eliminated within 5 minutes, and some of them I took a day or so to research. But the Barth syndrome, once I clicked on the Barth Syndrome Foundation webpage, it really had the most similar symptoms to Caleb. He had a few odd symptoms that none of the other Barth boys had, but basically the same symptoms. And then with losing my brother, with the similar symptoms also, they all kind of connected, and so that's when I filled out the contact form and we went from there. So I was like, okay. I said yes, and she called me. It was all within an hour of the contact, I guess, and we talked probably an hour and a half to 2 hours, that first phone call. It was just, like I said, talking to an old friend, that someone I had known for years, and it was just a very easy conversation. She knows how to make you feel comfortable. She knows the right things to say. She's been in your shoes. I mean, she's walked the walk. She just knows. It's just like talking to an old friend. I don't like to speak in public and that kind of things, and I don't like to have to talk to people I don't know really well either. So Shelley kind of forced me to call these different doctors that are involved in the foundation. I talked to Dr. Kelly and Dr. Tobin at Texas Children's, which, I had to work up a lot of courage to do that. But after talking to them, it seemed like, that Barth syndrome was likely. That's what Caleb had. So we had his tissue tested for Barth syndrome, and it came back positive for it. And so then we went and had, me and my mom and my sister were all tested to see if we were carriers.
Caleb lived 14 months. He had quite a bit of medical concerns. When he was initially born, he had heart problems and liver problems and a number of different issues that caused him to be hospitalized at Texas Children's in Houston for about 2 or 3 weeks, the first 2 or 3 weeks of his life. And they were not able to reach a diagnosis at that time. And really throughout his 14 months, he had issues that would rise and fall, and no one was able to diagnose specifically what he had. We left Texas Children's after the first 2 or 3 weeks of his life, and having had lots and lots of testing, and they basically said, well, he had something, but it seems to have resolved itself. The symptoms had reduced, and they weren't able to pinpoint it. And so when he passed away at 14 months, when the symptoms came back with a vengeance and the heart was in such poor shape that he just could not be saved at that point, that's when Kelly began really her internet search and spending hours and hours and hours through the nights trying to see if she could determine what it was that he had. The doctors were saying, well, you have 6 healthy children, and maybe mom had a virus, maybe something like that happened that caused this unusual condition, and encouraged us, if we wanted to go ahead and get pregnant again, because it just didn't feel like it was anything that might reoccur. So we had become pregnant during that time.
It was just something, it was like a genuine need. I had to do it. I couldn't, and there was at times that my brain would just get so full, and I just had to back away, and I didn't even look at that type of stuff for, a week or so, and then it would wake me up in the night, and I'd have to get up, and I'd have to just start looking again. With the symptoms of Barth syndrome being so unusual and rare, when I talked to Shelley, it was like talking to an old friend. It was like, even the very first time I talked to her, it was just like I had known her forever, and everything that we talked about was completely in common. And it was just so encouraging to talk to her. And like I said, she's the one who kind of forced me to really get answers, because like I said, I'm not one. I usually stand back and I just do what, it's the easiest, less disruptive way. And so she really encouraged me to get answers, and I wanted those answers. I just needed somebody to kind of push me there to do it. And even if it did turn out that it wasn't Barth syndrome, she still said, I'll be here for you, and I'll walk you hand in step by step. From the time Caleb died till the time we had a definite answer that it was Barth syndrome was 6 months. So, and somewhere in, I think maybe when we just got the positive diagnosis, I think I was maybe 6 weeks pregnant.
The diagnosis was very emotional for us on a lot of levels. It was relieving in the sense that we finally had an answer. It was sad because we didn't have it sooner to address the problems that Caleb had. And it was frightening because we now were pregnant again and had no earthly idea whether the child was a boy or a girl, much less whether or not he would be affected with Barth syndrome. So receiving the diagnosis really produced a flood of emotions in all of those areas. But certainly finding Shelley and the foundation was a tremendous blessing for both of us. The first thing that we did was that we attended the conference 4 years ago. While she was pregnant, we had received the diagnosis on the child that we lost, but we did not yet know whether or not the unborn child had Barth syndrome. And so we attended the conference, just the two of us, really with kind of a deer in the headlights approach. We didn't know whether we were about to deal with this again or not. We just knew that we needed to come to the conference and learn what we could and be prepared. And so we did that. That was the first thing that we did. And then as we continued on and were able to diagnose Benjamin with Barth syndrome prenatally, then we did begin seeing pediatric cardiologists, and the monitoring, of course, during the pregnancy was much more thorough as a result of that.
When we got there and we saw the boys, especially the little boys, it was kind of like seeing a ghost, because they all looked so much similar to Caleb. And so it was just, and then we saw the older boys, and we just saw that they're basically healthy. They do things. It just gave us a lot of hope, I guess, that if Benjamin was affected, that he can live a fairly normal life.
Yeah, I didn't have a lot of contact prior to the conference. Kelly primarily had done that, and so it was my first chance to really visit with some of the other parents, and that, as I said earlier, the deer in the headlights is about the best way I know to describe it, because you just I was just sort of stunned. I didn't know what to think. As Kelly said, seeing the boys was emotional, and identifying them with having what our little boy had, and We had one doctor in Odessa who could at least perceive that there was something going on, even as a lot of the specialists felt like there wasn't. Our pediatrician in Odessa at one point made the comment, he said, "I just don't know what he has, but I'm pretty confident no one else in Odessa has it." He at least had a perspective. It appeared to be a metabolic type situation, but nothing really more than that. So just the fact of seeing these other boys and these other families was very emotional. It was very encouraging, as Kelly said, but it was very emotional. It was as if you were seeing your little boy or boys that were somehow related to your little boy all over again.
I certainly became a stronger person and more able to handle the coordination and being able to talk with doctors. Sometimes you have to talk to doctors on more of a peer level, I guess, because sometimes I have to be the one that educates the doctors, and I have to explain to them, well, just because my son has cardiomyopathy, it doesn't run the same course as a typical cardiomyopathy, and so I have to, like I said, be on a peer relationship kind of with the doctor, and a lot of times that's not comfortable, and the doctor, you just have to be able to make sure that your doctor can accept that kind of relationship. It sort of becomes like, oh, well, this is the normal protocol for Barth syndrome. You have to be the one that does that, and so it just seems normal now.
It was a tremendous help to us once we learned that Benjamin was going to be affected with Barth syndrome. We immediately began meeting with specialists that we intended to use, and cardiologists and hematologists and those sorts of folks. And the information that we gave them was what we were able to get from the foundation. That was the source of information, articles by Dr. Kelly and information that the Barth Syndrome Foundation had produced. And so those were the first materials that we were able to put in their hands. We didn't run across a single specialist that had ever even heard of Barth syndrome, much less know anything about it. And so it was an incredibly important first step to be able to put that material in their hands and begin that relationship. Oh, it's wonderful to be with the other families and just to have the camaraderie and the opportunity to develop relationships and have a good time together, and then in addition to talk about caring for your child and those sorts of things. Our children have friends now that are siblings of other boys affected with Barth syndrome, and they look forward to coming to the conference and seeing the friends that they now have, and so it's a real encouragement to us as a family. Well, attending that first conference gave us the information we needed, not only the emotional support and the family type support, but gave us the information we needed really to start meeting with those doctors and specialists and preparing for Benjamin's birth. Our children have friends who now also have brothers with Barth syndrome, and so it is like a family reunion when we get together at the conferences.
They have the sibling workshops where they can talk about, like the one this time is how to explain Barth syndrome to your other friends, and so it helps them to be able to be better equipped, I guess, to handle Barth syndrome and their brother, and just being with other siblings who know what it's like to have a brother with Barth syndrome and how scary that can be at times, and then yet it's still just part of your normal life too.
When she was doing the research initially, she has no medical training or specialized background in the medical field, and so she literally would research those diseases and go to the online medical dictionaries to look up the words to figure out what it was that she was reading, and so it's been a process that's certainly taught her to be assertive in dealing with those issues. And even as she talks about visiting with the doctors, you never of course get on that peer-to-peer relationship because of the doctor's background and training and experience. And yet at the same time, you oftentimes have information that he or she doesn't have and needs. And so there's a real balance to being able to not be pushy in that process, but yet convey information that really will be helpful. And Kelly does a good job at that.
Yeah, I mean, he's been on heart medicine since birth, and his heart function is 100% normal. I mean, he's never been hospitalized, and he has periods of just infections sometimes, but we know how to deal with that now, and we know what medicines that are best for him, and so just...
We live with the reality of knowing that things go up and down, and obviously particularly knowing other families with similar situations, and so we're not naive in the sense that we realize what can happen to these boys, and yet at the same time we've been incredibly blessed for these first 3.5 years. He's been very healthy, all things considered, and lives a very normal life in most ways. When we talk about the foundation, it's an emotional thing for us because of the difference between our situation with Caleb without the foundation and without the information and support, and now with having Benjamin and having the foundation and having all of the help that we have. Literally, it's made the difference between life and death. Not having the information almost certainly resulted in our losing our first child, and having that information has given us the ability not only to have the support system, but to have the medical information that's allowed him to be treated literally from birth, and to live a very healthy, normal life to this point.
Connecting with the Barth Foundation, I would just say will give you a family. It'll give you somebody who will, like I said, walk you through the steps of being diagnosed. What they can help you, tell you what you need to do next, who you need to connect with, what doctors can help you the best. Just be your friend. Connecting with the foundation is probably one of the best things that I've ever done in terms of just the general health of my child. I truly feel like the foundation helped save Benjamin's life, because without the foundation, he may not be alive. Your child's health and life will just be more blessed by contacting the foundation.